In 2022, your office found that President Biden's DHS allowed some Afghans into the country before they were fully vetted, including, if I remember correctly, one who had been liberated from prison by the Taliban.
What you're about to hear is not speculation, not rumor, and not partisan spin. It's sworn testimony exposing how tens of thousands of Afghan evacuees were allowed into the United States with little to no vetting. And even Senator Josh Hawley sounded stunned by what came out. Before we get into it, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss critical breakdowns of what's really happening in Washington. Today we're reacting to a news clip where Senator Josh Hawley grills a DHS Inspector General witness over what can only be described as catastrophic failures in the Biden administration's Afghan vetting process. Failures that directly impact American national security.
Thank you very much, Senator Cornyn. Thanks to all the witnesses for being here. Mr. Adelman, if I could just start with you. You are the Deputy Inspector General for the agency charged with overseeing the Afghan parolee program. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In 2022, your office found that President Biden's DHS allowed some Afghans into the country before they were fully vetted, including, if I remember correctly, one who had been liberated from prison by the Taliban. Do I have that correct?
That's correct.
I think we're going to see this exhibit maybe over the side of my shoulder here. I just want to read directly from your report. CBP allowed some evacuees to enter into the United States who were not fully vetted. CBP paroled one evacuee into the United States who had been liberated from prison by the Taliban. CBP paroled another evacuee who posed national security concerns. Now, early reports by the inspectors general at DOD and the FBI found that over 50 known or suspected terrorists had entered the United States as a result of the Biden administration's screening or lack thereof. And last month, the director of national intelligence said that 2,000 Afghans in America may have ties to terrorism. That is a very, very big number. So I just want to talk a little bit about how this happened and see if I can get your help in doing that. Let me just start with testimony that this committee, the full committee, the Judiciary Committee, previously received. In 2021, then DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas testified that the administration had a rigorous vetting process in place. I think we've got a quote of his here. We have taken steps, I'm quoting him now, to make sure that the vetting program is indeed rigorous. Now, he said, this may have been in response to a question from me, he said that indeed the vetting did deviate from normal refugee screening. That was an understatement. But he went on to say, we have taken steps to make sure the program is indeed rigorous. So you investigated the vetting process. Did you find that the Biden administration's DHS had a formal vetting process in place that they followed carefully?
Watching this hearing, what stood out immediately was how calm the witness was while describing facts that should alarm every American. This wasn't a political operative or a pundit. This was the Deputy Inspector General confirming that at the start of Operation Allies Welcome, the Biden administration did not even have a formal vetting process in place. Let that sink in. No formal screening system, no standardized process. Just rushed admissions during one of the most chaotic withdrawals in modern U.S. history. Senator Hawley pointed to the Inspector General's own report showing that Customs and Border Protection allowed Afghan evacuees into the country who were not fully vetted. One of them had reportedly been freed from a Taliban prison. Others were flagged as national security concerns and still allowed in.
Mr. Chairman, before you answer, question for the chairman. Are we intentionally bypassing opening statements by the witnesses and going straight to questions?
No, we'll come back to opening statements after Senator Hawley's through.
The department did not have a formal process at the start of the OAW.
Okay, can you just say that one more time?
The department could not provide us with a formal screening and vetting process at the start of the OAW process.
The department did not have a formal screening and vetting process in place. The most that the Biden administration did, according to your investigation, was to run Afghans' biometric and biographical information, I think is what you found, like their names and dates of birth and other biographical information they may have supplied. Is that correct? Or that broadly correct?
That's correct until December of 2021 when they began requiring in-person interviews.
So until that time, for the first several months, they were relying on biographical information supplied by the Afghans as well as some biometrics. Now, your office found that that approach was severely flawed. partly because many Afghans did not know their birth dates. Is that correct? Explain this.
That's correct. There was missing information from the OAW population, including first, last names, and date of birth. There was about 11 to 12,000 that did not know their date of birth.
How many, sorry?
Between 11 and 12,000.
11 and 12,000 who did not, which is a cultural thing, I think, but
Correct.
obviously presents an issue for us when doing vetting. So 11 or 12,000 who were admitted for whom we didn't even have their date of birth. That's pretty extraordinary. Let me ask you this. Did the Biden administration require Afghans to show identification at ports of entry?
The department requested identification, but not all Afghans had formal identification, such as a passport. We found over 30,000 that did not have formal identification.
Can you just say that number one more time? How many who didn't have identification?
I believe the number's actually 36,000.
36,000 who could not show identification at a port of entry. Here's a quote from the report. CBP's concepts of operations allowed its officers to admit or parole evacuees into the country without presenting proper identification documents. 36,000 of them. That's astounding.
And it gets worse. According to testimony, DHS relied mostly on basic biographical information and some biometrics, early on names, dates of birth, whatever the evacuees could provide. But here's the problem. Between 11,000 and 12,000 evacuees didn't even know their own date of birth. On top of that, roughly 36,000 people entered the United States without formal identification, like a passport. That's not compassion. That's negligent.
My understanding is to do the bare bones background checks that were actually performed, DHS, the Biden DHS, sent a list of Afghans to the Department of Defense and the FBI. That process would normally take months. Would it surprise you to hear that the DOJ's Inspector General found that the list of evacuees was submitted to the FBI via email, and the FBI was given 2 hours to respond?
I can't confirm that. I can just say that there's very limited time to conduct the screening and vetting of those evacuees.
Yeah, here's the quote. It's over my shoulder, I think. DOD and CBP created lists of Afghan refugees which were submitted to the FBI via email with only 2 hours to respond. Let me just ask you finally, I know my time is about expired, just when it comes to interviews, normally refugees, SIV applicants are required to attend an in-person interview. Mr. Edelman, did DHS systematically interview evacuees before they were admitted? Were all the evacuees interviewed?
No,
Did they systematically conduct mental health screenings?
not that I'm aware of.
Well, all of the above should have been done. And the fact that tens of thousands were admitted without so much as an ID, without a birth date, I think it's really no surprise why we are where we are. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Even more troubling, background checks that normally take months were rushed through in hours. Lists of evacuees were reportedly emailed to the FBI with as little as 2 hours to respond. 2 hours to vet people coming from a war zone controlled by terrorist organizations. No systematic in-person interviews. No confirmed mental health screenings. And all of this directly contradicts prior testimony from DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who claimed the process was rigorous. As a patriot who believes in legal immigration done the right way, this isn't about demonizing refugees. It's about accountability. A government that refuses to secure its borders, ignores basic vetting standards, and then demands public trust is a government failing its most basic responsibility, protecting its citizens. When intelligence officials now admit that thousands of Afghans in the U.S. may have ties to terrorism, the question isn't how this happened. The hearing made that painfully clear. The real question is why no one has been held responsible. If you believe Americans deserve transparency, accountability, and a government that puts national security first, hit like and subscribe. This channel will continue breaking down these hearings and exposing what the mainstream media won't focus on.